Winter 1979, Dallas, Texas. A 21-year-old woman, beautiful, bright, admired, vanishes without a trace just 60 days before her wedding. For 12 years, her disappearance torments detectives, devastates a family, and haunts an entire community. Her name was Pamela Harris. And the truth behind her fate, the horrifying betrayal, the unimaginable cruelty, would only be uncovered more than a decade later when the man she loved tried to kill again. This is the story of a stolen future, a hidden monster, and a cold case resurrected by one final fatal mistake. January 13th, 1979, Dallas, Texas. Temperature, 22 degrees Fahrenheit. A young woman leaves her apartment wearing a burgundy coat and carrying a small purse. She's meeting her fiancé for dinner, planning final details for a wedding just 58 days away. She walks to her car, checks her reflection in the side mirror, adjusts her scarf, and then she's gone. For 12 years, Pamela Harris would exist only in photographs, in the desperate prayers of a heartbroken mother, in the nightmares of detectives who couldn't solve the puzzle of a woman who simply vanished. But Pamela didn't vanish. She was erased, systematically, brutally, by the one person who promised to love her forever. This is the story of a stolen future, a perfect disguise, and the horrifying recording that would finally expose a monster who thought he'd gotten away with murder. Her name was Pamela Harris, and this is how the truth came crawling back from the grave. Before we talk about how Pamela Harris died, we need to understand how she lived, because Pamela wasn't just a victim. She was a daughter, a sister, a friend, a dreamer. She was real. Pamela Jean Harris was born on May 17, 1957, in Dallas, Texas, to Margaret Harris, a single mother who worked double shifts at Parkland Hospital just to keep the lights on. Margaret raised 3 children in a 2-bedroom house on Oakland Avenue in South Dallas. Money was always tight, but love was abundant. Pamela was my first, my helper. When I'd come home exhausted, she'd already have dinner started, already have her brothers bathed and in bed. She was 10 years old doing the work of a woman twice her age, and she never complained. Pamela attended James Madison High School, where she was known for 2 things: her infectious laugh and her inability to say no when someone needed help. Pam was the type of girl who'd give you her lunch if she thought you were hungry. I'm talking about literally handing you her sandwich and saying she wasn't hungry. She'd tutor kids after school for free. She'd visit sick neighbors, and she did it all without needing credit or recognition. After graduating in 1975, Pamela took a job as a secretary at Henderson and Ross Insurance on Commerce Street. The pay wasn't great, $180 a week, but it was steady. And Pamela had plans, big plans. She enrolled in night classes at El Centro College, working toward becoming a licensed practical nurse. Her dream was to work in pediatrics. She used to say, "I'm going to be somebody who helps people for real, not just filing papers, but saving lives." And you believed her. Because when Pamela said something, she meant it. By early 1978, Pamela was juggling 3 things: a full-time job, nursing classes 2 nights a week, and weekend shifts waitressing at Denny's on Mockingbird Lane. She was exhausted, but she was determined. And then she met Jones Collins. It was March of 1978, a Saturday night. Pamela was clearing tables when a man in a denim jacket sat down in her section. He was quiet, intense. He ordered coffee and sat there for 2 hours watching her. When he finally left, he tipped her $20 on a $2.50 check. She came back to the kitchen holding that 20 like it was gold. She said, "Some white guy just tipped me $20. You think that means something?" And I told her, "Girl, that means he's interested or he's crazy. Maybe both." Jones Collins came back the next weekend. And the weekend after that, always sitting in Pamela's section, always watching, always tipping too much. Finally, on the fourth visit, he asked her out. Pamela said yes. Looking back, those who knew Pamela would say this was the moment everything changed. Not immediately, not obviously, but slowly. Like a dimmer switch being turned down, Pamela's light began to fade. Jones Edward Collins was born on August 3, 1953, in Garland, Texas, a working-class suburb just northeast of Dallas. He was the second of 4 children. His father, Raymond Collins, worked at a tire factory. His mother, Doris, was a homemaker. By all outward appearances, the Collins family was unremarkable. But inside that home, things were darker. Raymond had a temper. You'd hear yelling sometimes, doors slamming. The kids were always quiet. Too quiet, if you know what I mean. Like they'd learned not to make noise. Jones was described by teachers as withdrawn and difficult to engage. He had few friends. He didn't play sports. He didn't join clubs. He just existed. At 17, he dropped out of high school and started working at a machine shop on Industrial Boulevard. Welding, metalwork, physical labor that didn't require conversation. By the time he met Pamela in 1978, Jones was 25 years old, living alone in a small rental house in East Dallas and working the same job he'd had for 8 years. He had no criminal record, no history of violence, no red flags, at least not on paper. But those who watched Jones and Pamela together noticed something off. The first time she brought him around, I didn't like him. Not because he was white, we didn't care about that. But because of how he looked at her, like she was something he owned. Like she was his property. In the beginning, Pamela seemed happy. Jones was attentive. He called her every night, brought her flowers, told her she was beautiful. But within weeks, subtle changes began. Pamela stopped going out with friends. She stopped attending church with her family. She started making excuses. She'd say, "Oh, Jones doesn't really like crowds," or "Jones wants us to have a quiet weekend." At first I thought, okay, maybe he's just shy. But then she stopped returning my calls, and when I'd see her at work, she'd seem distant, like she was somewhere else. By the fall of 1978, Pamela's co-workers noticed bruises, small ones, on her wrists, her upper arms. When asked, Pamela would laugh it off. "Oh, I'm just clumsy. I bumped into a door. You know me, always rushing around." But Sandra Elliott, Pamela's closest co-worker, wasn't convinced. One day, I pulled her aside. I said, "Pam, is everything okay at home?" And she just looked at me. Really looked at me. And for a second, I saw fear. Real fear. But then she smiled and said, "Everything's fine, Sandy. Jones just worries about me, that's all." Worries about me. That phrase would haunt Sandra for years. Because what Pamela didn't say, what she couldn't say, was that Jones Collins wasn't worried. He was obsessed. Jones needed to know where Pamela was at all times, who she talked to, what she said. He'd show up at her job unannounced. He'd drive by her apartment at odd hours. He'd call her mother's house and hang up if someone else answered. I told her, "Baby, this man is too possessive. Something's not right." But she'd defend him. She'd say, "Mama, he just loves me. He's protective." And I said, "Love doesn't feel like a cage, Pamela." But she wouldn't listen. Then, in November 1978, Jones proposed. He didn't ask Pamela's mother for permission. He didn't plan a romantic evening. He simply told Pamela they were getting married, and somehow she said yes. When she told us, my mama cried. Not happy tears, scared tears. She said, "Pamela, please don't do this." But Pam was already too deep. She thought she could fix him. She thought love would be enough. The wedding was set for March 12, 1979. Pamela picked out a dress, ordered invitations, made a guest list. But as the date approached, Those close to her noticed something troubling. Pamela wasn't excited. She was terrified. 2 weeks before she disappeared, I ran into her at the grocery store. She looked exhausted. I asked her if she was okay, and she said something I will never forget. She said, "V, do you ever feel like you're already dead, but your body just hasn't figured it out yet?" Vanessa didn't know what to say. She hugged Pamela, told her to call if she needed anything. That was the last time Vanessa Moore ever saw her friend alive. January 13, 1979. Dallas is in the grip of one of the coldest winters in decades. Temperatures have been below freezing for 3 straight days. The city isn't used to this kind of cold. Pamela Harris wakes up that Saturday morning in her small one-bedroom apartment on Haskell Avenue. She has errands to run, invitations to finalize, a dress fitting scheduled for Monday. The wedding is 58 days away. At 9:47 a.m., Pamela calls her mother. "Hello? Hey, Mama. Just wanted to check in before I get my day started. You sound tired, baby." "I'm okay, just busy. You know how it is. You still meeting Jones tonight?" "Yeah, dinner at 6. "All right. Call me when you get home." "I will. Love you, Mama." "Love you too, baby." That was the last time Margaret Harris heard her daughter's voice. At approximately 11:30 a.m., Pamela is seen at a print shop on Greenville Avenue picking up wedding invitations. At 2:15 p.m., she stops at a drugstore to buy cold medicine and stamps. At 4:20 p.m., a neighbor sees her leaving her apartment building, wearing a burgundy wool coat and carrying a small brown purse. And then nothing. Pamela was supposed to meet Jones at a restaurant called the Blackstone Grill at 6 p.m. She never arrived. Jones called her apartment at 6:30 p.m. No answer. He called again at 7 p.m. No answer. At 8:15 p.m. he called Margaret Harris. "Mrs. Harris?" "It's Jones. Is Pamela there?" "No, she's supposed to be with you. She never showed up." "I've been waiting at the restaurant for over 2 hours. What do you mean she didn't show up? Did you call her apartment?" "I tried. No answer." I'm worried, Mrs. Harris." Margaret hung up and immediately drove to Pamela's apartment. She used her spare key to get inside. Everything looked normal, no signs of a struggle. Pamela's bed was made, her coat closet was open, the burgundy coat was gone, but her car was still in the parking lot. Margaret called the police at 9:47 p.m. I told them, "My daughter is missing. She left her apartment hours ago and never came back." And you know what they said? They said, "Maybe she got cold feet. Brides do that sometimes. Cold feet." Like Pamela was the type of girl to just run off and not tell anybody. Like she'd leave her mama sitting by the phone, worried sick. The Dallas Police Department opened a missing persons case the next morning. But from the start, the investigation was hampered by assumptions. Look, I wasn't on the case initially, but I've read the files. And the truth is, in 1979, if a young woman disappeared right before her wedding, the default assumption was that she'd run away, especially if there was no body, no blood, no witnesses. The system failed Pamela from day one. For the first 48 hours, police focused on Pamela's personal life. Was she unhappy? Was she having second thoughts about the wedding? Was there another man? Meanwhile, Jones Collins played the role of devastated fiancé perfectly. He cooperated with police, answered every question, even helped organize search parties. Jones came across as genuinely distraught. He'd show up at the station asking for updates. He'd call Margaret Harris every day saying, "We'll find her, Mrs. Harris. I know we will." He was convincing, very convincing. But behind closed doors, Margaret Harris had doubts. Something about the way he talked didn't sit right. He kept using past tense. Pamela was so excited about the wedding. She was always so thoughtful. Was. Like he already knew she was gone. On January 20th, 1 week after Pamela's disappearance, Police searched Jones Collins' home. They found nothing, no evidence of foul play, no blood, no signs of struggle. Jones's story remained consistent. He'd been waiting at the restaurant. Pamela never showed. He had no idea where she went. We had no body. No witnesses, no physical evidence. Jones had an alibi. He was at the restaurant, confirmed by staff. We had nothing to hold him on. By February, the case had stalled. By March, it was cold. By the end of 1979, Pamela Harris was just another name in a file. Another missing woman who'd probably run away. Except she hadn't. Pamela Harris hadn't run away. She'd been murdered. And for 12 years, her killer would walk free, working, living, even loving again, while Pamela's body lay rotting in a shallow grave. But monsters make mistakes. And Jones Collins was about to make his. Marcus Harris, Pamela's younger brother, becomes a police officer, partly because he wants to find his sister, partly because he wants to prevent other families from suffering the same pain. I kept Pam's case file on my desk. Every few months, I'd reread it, looking for something everyone missed. But there was nothing. Just a woman who walked out of her apartment and disappeared into thin air. Jones Collins, meanwhile, quietly rebuilds his life. In the fall of 1981, he moves to Fort Worth, just 30 miles from Dallas, but far enough to start fresh. He gets a job at a construction company, rents a small house, keeps to himself. And in 1984, he meets someone new. Her name is Linda K. Summers. Linda is 28 years old, a bank teller, quiet, trusting, recently divorced with no children. She meets Jones at a hardware store. He's polite, helpful, a little shy. They start dating. At first, Jones seemed perfect. He was attentive. He'd call every night, bring me flowers. He made me feel special, like I was the only person in the world who mattered to him. They marry in June 1985. And for a while, Linda is happy. But within months, the same patterns emerge, the same control, the same obsession. He needed to know where I was every second. If I was 10 minutes late coming home from work, he'd accuse me of cheating. If I talked to a male coworker, he'd interrogate me for hours. It was exhausting. I felt like I was suffocating. By 1987, Jones's behavior had escalated. He'd go through Linda's purse, read her mail, listen in on her phone calls. One time I found him sitting in his truck outside my work, just watching. When I confronted him, he said he was protecting me. But I wasn't in danger. He was the danger. Linda tried to leave in 1989. She packed a bag and went to her sister's house. Jones found her within 24 hours. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just cried, begged, promised he'd change. I believed him. God help me, I believed him. And I went back. But Jones didn't change. He got worse. The verbal abuse became physical, shoving, grabbing, slapping. And then, on May 18, 1991, almost exactly 12 years after Pamela disappeared, Jones Collins tried to kill his wife. May 18, 1991, Fort Worth, Texas. It's a Saturday night. Linda Collins is washing dishes when Jones comes home from work. He's been drinking, something he's doing more and more lately. He accuses Linda of flirting with a neighbor. She denies it. He doesn't believe her. He grabbed me by the throat and slammed me against the refrigerator. I couldn't breathe. I clawed at his hands, but he just squeezed harder. He was saying something. I couldn't hear what, but his face was blank, like he wasn't even there. Linda manages to knee Jones in the groin. He releases her for just a second, long enough for her to run. She makes it to the front door, throws it open, runs barefoot across the lawn to a neighbor's house. She was pounding on my door, screaming, "Help me! He's gonna kill me!" Her neck was bruised. She was bleeding from her mouth. I let her in and locked the door. Then I called 911. Police arrive within 6 minutes. They find Jones Collins sitting calmly on his front porch, smoking a cigarette. He didn't resist arrest, didn't even seem surprised we were there. When I cuffed him, he just said, "She made me do it." Like it was her fault he tried to strangle her. Jones is charged with attempted murder and domestic violence. But this time, Linda doesn't back down. She presses charges, testifies, refuses to drop the case. And that decision saves more than just her life. As part of the investigation, Fort Worth detectives obtain a warrant to search Jones Collins' home. They're looking for evidence related to the attack on Linda, photos, journals, anything that might establish a pattern of abuse. What they find is far more sinister. We were in the bedroom, going through his closet, when I noticed something off. The floorboards. One of them wasn't flush with the others, so I pried it up. And underneath, there was a wooden trunk. The trunk is old, heavy, sealed with rusted nails. It takes 2 officers to lift it out of the floor. When they open it, the smell hits them first. Mildew, decay, something rotting. Inside are items that make no immediate sense. A gold locket with the initials PH. Wedding invitation drafts dated March 1979. A bundle of photographs of a young black woman, several pieces of women's clothing, and a single unlabeled cassette tape. We didn't know what we were looking at initially, but when we ran the initials and the dates, a cold case popped up. Pamela Harris, missing since 1979. And the man who reported her missing? Jones Collins. The detectives take the trunk back to the station. They catalog the items, photograph everything, and then they play the tape. What they hear on that tape will haunt them for the rest of their lives. I've been a cop for 30 years. I've seen terrible things. But that tape was evil, pure evil. The recording is over 4 hours long. It begins with Pamela's voice. She's crying, begging, "Please, Jones. Please stop. I love you." "Why are you doing this?" Jones's voice is calm, almost detached. "Because you need to learn. You need to understand who you belong to." The tape documents hours of torture, sexual assault, beatings, psychological abuse. Jones forces Pamela to repeat phrases. "I belong to you. I'll never leave you. I'm yours forever." Detectives listening to the tape have to take breaks. Some leave the room in tears. You could hear her spirit breaking. At first, she's fighting, screaming, begging him to stop. But as the hours go on, she gets quieter, weaker. By the end, she's barely whispering. And then, at the 4-hour and 17-minute mark, there's a sickening thud, followed by silence, followed by Jones's voice, cold and flat. It's done. Pamela Harris had not disappeared. She had been murdered, and her killer had recorded every moment. The discovery of the tape reignites the Pamela Harris case immediately. The Dallas Police Department, Fort Worth detectives, and the FBI form a joint task force. Their mission: find Pamela's body. The tape gave us clues. Jones mentioned specific details, sounds, smells, descriptions of the location. He talked about the smell of oil and metal scraping. He mentioned it being cold and isolated. We started building a profile of possible locations. Investigators pulled Jones Collins's employment records from 1979. He was working at Thompson Industrial Machine Shop on Industrial Boulevard in East Dallas. The shop closed in 1983. The property has been abandoned ever since. When I heard they were searching near that machine shop, I knew. I just knew. I'd driven past that place 100 times over the years and never thought twice about it. But Jones had access. He had keys. He could come and go whenever he wanted. On September 29, 1991, a search team arrives at the abandoned machine shop. Cadaver dogs are brought in. Within 20 minutes, one of the dogs alerts near a wooded area behind the building. The dog indicated a spot about 15 feet from the tree line. We started digging. About 3 feet down, we found fabric, then bones. It was a shallow grave, hastily dug, poorly concealed. If we'd searched this area in 1979, we would have found her. The remains are carefully excavated over the next 6 hours. What they find confirms their worst fears. The body had been dismembered, arms and legs severed, torso separated. It was clearly done to make disposal easier and to hinder identification. This was methodical, calculated, not a crime of passion. This was a crime of control. Dental records confirm the remains belong to Pamela Jean Harris. After 12 years, Pamela is finally coming home. When they told me they found her, I fell to my knees. I'd prayed for 12 years to know what happened, to have answers. But when the answer came, it broke me all over again. The autopsy reveals additional horrors. Pamela had been sexually assaulted, beaten, strangled. Cause of death: blunt force trauma to the skull. The skull showed evidence of multiple impacts. She was struck repeatedly with a heavy object, likely a metal pipe or wrench. The injuries were severe. She would have lost consciousness quickly, but not instantly. She suffered. Armed with the tape, the physical evidence, and Jones's own recorded confession, prosecutors move swiftly. Jones Collins is charged with first-degree murder, aggravated sexual assault, kidnapping, abuse of a corpse, and thanks to Linda's bravery, he's also facing attempted murder, aggravated domestic assault. Jones Collins will finally face justice. But the question remains, why? Why did he kill Pamela Harris? April 14, 1992. The trial of Jones Edward Collins begins in Dallas County Criminal Court. The prosecution is led by District Attorney Patricia Holbrook, a seasoned prosecutor known for her relentless pursuit of justice in violent crime cases. The defense is handled by court-appointed attorney Michael Brennan, who faces an almost impossible task: defending a man whose own voice condemns him. This was one of the most clear-cut cases I've ever prosecuted. We had physical evidence, a recorded confession, and a pattern of behavior. The challenge wasn't proving guilt, it was helping the jury understand the level of evil they were dealing with. The trial lasts 3 weeks. The prosecution calls over 30 witnesses: friends, family, co-workers, forensic experts, and Linda Collins, who bravely testifies about her own near-death experience. He told me once, in the middle of the night, "I've done this before." I asked him what he meant, and he just stared at me. Didn't say another word. I didn't understand then, but I do now. But the centerpiece of the trial, the moment that defines everything, is when the prosecution plays the tape. Judge Martha Calloway warns the courtroom, "What you are about to hear is deeply disturbing. If you need to step out, you may do so. But I encourage you to stay, because this is the truth. And the truth, no matter how painful, deserves to be heard." For 4 hours the jury listens. Some cry openly. Others stare at their hands. One juror vomits and has to be escorted out. Jones Collins sits stone-faced, emotionless. I'll never forget that day, hearing Pamela's voice, hearing her beg for her life, and then hearing him tell her she deserved it, that she made him do it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to jump over the railing and hurt him myself. The defense's strategy is limited. They can't deny the tape exists. They can't deny Jones killed Pamela. So they argue diminished capacity. That Jones was mentally unstable. That he didn't fully understand what he was doing. Look, I knew I couldn't win. But my job was to ensure he got a fair trial. So we brought in psychiatrists who testified that Jones showed signs of severe personality disorders. We argued he needed treatment, not just punishment. The prosecution counters with their own experts. Jones Collins was not insane. He knew exactly what he was doing. The tape proves it. He was methodical. He planned. He hid the body. He lived a normal life for 12 years. That's not insanity. That's evil. On May 6, 1992, after just 4 hours of deliberation, the jury returns with a verdict. guilty, on all counts. When they read that verdict, I felt Pamela's hand on my shoulder. I felt her saying, "It's okay, Mama. He can't hurt anyone else now." 2 weeks later, the sentencing hearing begins. Victim impact statements are read. Margaret Harris speaks. Marcus Harris speaks. Friends and coworkers speak. And finally, Linda Collins speaks. "You tried to kill me. And maybe, in some twisted way, you thought that would silence me. But you were wrong. I'm standing here today because of Pamela. Her voice, the voice you tried to erase, gave me the courage to survive. And now, because of her, you'll never hurt anyone again." Judge Calloway delivers the sentence: life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder of Pamela Harris. An additional 25 years for the attempted murder of Linda Collins, to be served consecutively. Mr. Collins, you are a danger to society. You are a predator. And you will spend the rest of your natural life behind bars, where you belong. Jones Collins shows no emotion. He's led out of the courtroom in shackles, and as he passes Margaret Harris, she says one final thing to him: "You stole her voice. But in the end, her voice is what condemned you." Pamela Harris was buried on June 3, 1992, at Lincoln Memorial Cemetery in South Dallas. Over 500 people attended her funeral: friends, family, former co-workers, and people who'd never met her but were moved by her story. I told the congregation that day, Pamela's life was stolen, but her light was not. That light lives on in everyone who refuses to let her story be forgotten. In the years following the trial, Pamela's family worked to ensure her legacy extended beyond tragedy. In 1994, Margaret Harris and Marcus Harris established the Pamela Harris Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to supporting families of missing persons, particularly women of color whose cases often receive less media attention and fewer resources. Pamela's case went cold because no one took it seriously at first. A young black woman disappears? Must have run away. That assumption cost us 12 years. We started this foundation to make sure other families don't have to fight that same battle. The foundation offers free investigative support for cold cases, counseling services for families, legal advocacy, public awareness campaigns. To date, the Pamela Harris Foundation has helped resolve over 40 cold cases. Every time we help bring someone home, whether they're found alive or laid to rest, we think of Pamela. She's the reason we do this work. Her story is a reminder that every missing person matters. Every family deserves answers. Pamela's case also led to significant changes in how law enforcement handles missing persons cases in Texas. In 1995, the state implemented the Pamela Harris Protocol, a set of guidelines requiring immediate investigation of missing persons cases, regardless of assumptions about the victim's intent to disappear. Before Pamela, it was too easy for cases to fall through the cracks. The protocol ensures that every missing person is treated as a potential victim of foul play until proven otherwise. It saved lives. Margaret Harris passed away in 2018 at the age of 82. In her final interview, she said, "I miss my daughter every single day. I think about who she would have been, the children she might have had, the lives she would have touched. But I also know she's still here, in the work we do, in the people we help." Pamela's not gone. She's just transformed. Jones Edward Collins is currently incarcerated at the Polunsky Unit in Livingston, Texas, a maximum security prison that houses some of the state's most violent offenders. He is 71 years old. He has never shown remorse, never apologized, never acknowledged his guilt beyond the legal verdict. I evaluated Collins in 2005 as part of a routine assessment. He showed classic signs of narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial behavior. When I asked him about Pamela, he said, "She made her choices. No empathy, no accountability, just emptiness." Linda Collins rebuilt her life after the trial. She remarried in 1998 and now lives in Arizona. She advocates for domestic violence survivors and speaks publicly about her experience. People ask me if I have nightmares. I do. But I also have something Jones never gave me: freedom. I'm alive because Pamela's voice was louder than his lies. I owe her everything. Marcus Harris retired from the Dallas Police Department in 2015 after 35 years of service. He now runs the Pamela Harris Foundation full-time. Every morning I look at Pam's picture on my desk, and I tell her, "We're still fighting, sis. We're still here." And I believe she hears me. Pamela's grave is visited regularly. Fresh flowers appear weekly. Letters are left. Strangers stop by to pay respects. Her headstone reads, Pamela Jean Harris, 1957 to 1979. Beloved daughter, sister, friend. Her voice will never be silenced. Pamela Harris should be 67 years old today. She should have celebrated her 44th wedding anniversary, though likely not to Jones Collins. She should have children, grandchildren, a career she loved. She should have grown old surrounded by people who cherished her. But that future was stolen on a frozen January night in 1979 by a man who believed he owned her. This story isn't just about a murder. It's about the insidious nature of control, the way abuse isolates, the way society dismisses women's fears as overreactions. Pamela told people she was worried. She showed signs. She asked for help in the only ways she knew how. But in 1979, domestic violence wasn't taken seriously. Possessiveness was mistaken for love. Control was excused as protectiveness. Today, we know better. We understand that love doesn't demand isolation, that jealousy isn't romantic, that "he just worries about me" is often code for "I'm afraid." Pamela's story reminds us to listen, to believe, to act, because the next Pamela Harris might be sitting next to you right now, at work, at church, at the grocery store, and maybe, just maybe, if we're paying attention, we can save her. Cold cases are never truly cold. They wait in file cabinets and basements, whispering for justice. They linger in the hearts of mothers who never stop searching. They echo in the voices of survivors who refuse to stay silent. Pamela Harris's voice was nearly erased, but it survived, in a tape, in a trial, in a foundation that bears her name. Her voice was her condemnation of evil, and her voice will never be silenced. This has been the story of Pamela Jean Harris, a woman who deserved better, a woman whose light was extinguished too soon, but a woman whose legacy burns brighter than the darkness that's trying to consume her. Rest in power, Pamela. Your voice matters, your life mattered, and you will never be forgotten. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please reach out. National Domestic Violence Hotline 1-800-799-7233. You are not alone. You are believed. You matter.